All right. Okay. Matsotso a live stream humgan. All right. Negazabetek komaulaka todo. All right. Hutsatsek todo dispensazo. Oh, yep. O opens an aanok humgan. Humgan. Oh, yep. All right. We are live.
All right.
Live. Biba, biba, biba. All right.
Some technical difficulties, but we are live.
Humgan. All right. Half a day todos hamzu bueno hudzon. Buenas.
Buenas.
Este nuevo episode Fanachu. Guahui host Midzu. Si Maga'lahen Bavakwa. And you know what my partner Desiree picked up last week? A lovely t-shirt that said, "The future is Famagu'un."
Okay.
She picked up a shirt that said, "The future is Famagu'un." For our two younger kids, si Lulai and si Makana, because I don't think my two teens, Sumahi and Ekli, would be caught dead wearing a Futurist Famagu'un shirt at this point. But for the younger nennies, absolutely, the future is Famagu'un. But ever since Whitney Houston started singing this, people say this, people feel this, people believe this. But what does it mean if children are our future? What should we be teaching them? What are the tools that we should be handing them? Especially not just sort of if we think about this from an American perspective, from a US education perspective, but what if we think about this from the perspective of a culture which has been in the Marianas for 4,000 years? People talk about living the Inafresi. The Inafresi says that we should protehi, then defendi, and then it lists off 6 things. 6 things, right? And some of you out there are you're thinking right now, oh my goodness, I didn't pay attention in the Inafresi, or oh my goodness, I always zone out in the Inafresi. Or some of you might be saying, I'm too old. We didn't learn the Inafresi when I was in school. Or I'm so old that we sang Fanogi CHamoru in English. It was Stand Guamanians when I was growing up. But one of the most important things in those 6 elements that the Inafresi reminds us are essential for protecting and defending life and viability of life, our people, our community, is of course Hanom, the water. And when you think about it, it's something that's essential. Our bodies are made up of water. We need water to survive on a community level. You need water to survive on a daily level. And so teaching our kids the value of water, connecting them with water, is so essential. And so I'm very excited that for today's Fanachu podcast, we're talking to Maria Hernandez and Saina May, who are both part of Prugråman Hånom, Hita iman aadahi Hanom, which is a program which has a wonderful focus. Science, indigenous approaches to science, teaching children sort of about taking care of their natural resources, connecting them to those natural resources in a variety of ways involving language and culture, the Hurao school, all sorts of amazing things. And so when we're talking about the types of education that we need, when we're talking about decolonizing education, grounding education, it's all in this program. And so I'm very excited that the both of you are here today to talk about this. And so before we get started, can the both of you put favor introduce yourself? Maria, Hago Finetna, put favor.
Again, Titos Maasi Maget. We're so excited to be on Fanachu today. Titos Maasi Saina May for tuning in from Massachusetts. I was going to say it, CHamoru, Massachusetts. It's 10 p.m. there, so we're so grateful to Saina May for being on. And yeah, this has been a program that has been years in the making. I am co-director of an environmental nonprofit in Guåhan called Micronesia Climate Change Alliance. I'm also Familian Latexan, so my family has ancestry to Latexan in northern Guam. We've been doing land and water advocacy and fighting for the return of our ancestral land for generations, for more than 60 years now. So this work is near and dear to my heart as a daughter of Guåhan, as somebody born and raised here on our beautiful island, and now a mother of 3. This is just extremely important, and it's a critical time for us to come together as a community and really fight for the protection of our precious resources. And so yeah, Sina May and I met in 2022, and maybe she can share a little bit about that in her intro, but I'll stop there. Go ahead, Sina.
Yeah, actually, I met Maria in the 80th Liberation celebration in Guam at the Guam Museum, which I watched a film that they had put out for the love of water. And after the show, I got talking to her and a couple of colleagues that are people that were in the museum. And so I said that if there was any help they needed, I would gladly help them out with whatever they, wanted to help out with testing the waters of Guam. So Maria had invited me to participate in this Hanom program Hanom. And we did this work with the Hurao school students at Barrigada, and I really enjoyed having the kids and showing them to test the waters and what to look for in the waters, how to read the test strips. I unfortunately live in Massachusetts, but I've worked in Guam just about everywhere, Guam Memorial. I work with the Doctor's Clinic. I work with FHP. I work with the Good Samaritan Clinic. And now I've retired with Millipore Sigma in Massachusetts. And now I'm, retired. So anything I can do to help with Maria, I'm very glad to have this opportunity to join them with the program. Yeah. So thank you for inviting me too, Maga'lahen and Maria. Yeah.
Oh no, Hamzu Mas. And so before we get started talking about this, let's watch a video. There was some great videos that I saw on social media about the program. And so why don't we watch a video that the PDN shared and kind of highlighting this. And so ay day man mangyesti na neni siya.
Again.
Oh my goodness. All right. So here we go.
This is a youth pilot water testing program at Chief Hurao Charter School. So we also, in addition to our citizen science project, invited Brent Tibbetts, who has been doing water restoration work here at Masu for about 20 years now.
The first thing that we did was we knew that this was very dirty. The military had a problem with mud in here 50, 70 years ago. So the first thing we did was we drained all the water out of here, and we scooped out all the mud that had built up in here over the years.
We also invited Royce Camacho, who has ancestral connections to this land, to talk a little bit about the cultural importance of the land.
One of the real reasons that draws us to this area is that over the last few years, there have been artifacts that have been found in this area that suggest that this place was likely a settlement. So we found things like pottery, of course, and things from our stone culture called the Lati culture. They're big grinding stones, like for grinding medicine, you know, like how our ancestors would have needed to grind medicine way back in the day, right? Thousands of years ago.
For the last 2 weeks, we've been making bolen fatsi, or mud balls. We're calling them metgut mud balls. They're more commonly known as bokashi balls, and they have beneficial bacteria in them that helps to restore water bodies on islands. So we've just been doing some citizen science water testing. We found that the Masu reservoir tested positive for coliform bacteria, which bokashi helps to eliminate. And so the 90s are just learning how to feel empowered, and just learning the importance of just their power as the youth to take the protection of our waters on our island into their own hands. Okay, when I count to tres. Uno, dos, tres.
The mud balls that we made today and we just threw into the reservoir are part of the program. They made it themselves. So part of empowering them is showing them that there's tiny things you can do with your kids, at home, with your cousins, with family, that can have a big impact on the environment. So learning about the sciences, but also going out there and doing the work yourself. But another thing with this program is how easy it can be for you to help out. Science shouldn't be this big scary thing. It's something that is accessible. It's something that you can do, like the mud balls. It's a very simple recipe. You give it a week to let that good bacteria form, and you can test the water yourself. There's kits at Home Depot. You could see about lead, iron, copper, know what your water looks like, and be able to help it out.
Oh, yeah, dang. Bonito and oh, so it's good that that video clarified that those were not malasadas. Those were bolan fatsi. So for anyone out there who is like, hey man, and Mababa Leonard's Bakery, Gwinigid sa Guåhan, that Leonard's Bakery has opened up on Guam. No, those were bolan fatsi. And so, man, that was a lovely video. And so I think, I mean, a lot of people are, I think a lot of people really want to know more about how this amazing program got started, and and so Maria, if you don't mind saying a little bit more about how did this come about, because I think even in that clip right there, a lot of issues came up, that contamination in the water. I think people know that we get used to seeing the headlines that beaches are contaminated. People hear that firing ranges may contaminate our water source, and so we hear about these things, and so it's good to see some action being made. That, well, why don't we empower our community then to not just receive this news and just hear this news, but like to actually think then, well, why don't we actually check on our resources? Why don't we actually take the step? And so, Maria, why don't you talk more about the genesis of this, of Hita iman aadahi Hanom?
Yes, we had to definitely let the students know that you cannot eat. They look delicious. It's kind of like, I'm a soap maker, so my soaps look sometimes like pieces of cake, and you just have to always have that disclaimer.
Pungan, that is so true.
So important.
We've gotten some of your soap, and yet again, sometimes it's like, oh wait, no, esti habon. Oh wait. Spencer.
Yeah, so do not eat the bolen fatsi. One of the questions when we first introduced like the fact that we were gonna make mud balls together with the students, they were like, can we have a mud ball fight? Or like, he guys, we gotta do something good for the environment with these mud balls. So yeah, it just kind of all really organically came together. Mom, I'm sorry, my mom's house, and they're listening to the podcast at the same time that we're on the podcast. I'm like, you can listen to me live.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't know if you hear that, but no, so 2 years ago when I met Sina May, it was at the Guam Museum at the screening for the first film in the For Love of Water series that I made with my little cousin, Erin, who was just 16 at the time. And we traveled all around speaking with water protectors in Guåhan, in the Northern Islands, in Hawaii, and it was through a fellowship with the Bertha Foundation. And so we were the screening at the Guam Museum, I believe it was in December of 2022. Sina May happened to be visiting the island, and she just came to the museum to use the restroom, I think, and just noticed
Yes.
there's a lot of people here. My auntie Tisa was at the door. She's like, "Oh, my niece is screening a film," and Sina May, just having that medical and that tech background, and just caring about our natural resources, as a CHamoru woman and with the love of our islands, just was like, let's watch it. It's very, very impromptu. Let's go and check out this film screening. So she came in, watched it, and then after came up to me and was like, I actually want to show you how easy it is. It's not hard to test water. And so offered that knowledge. I think it was in the first film, or maybe during the fellowship, where I had expressed how hard it was to just in Guåhan to collect a sample of water and test for certain chemicals. Like, we have a history of PCBs in our waters. We still have PCBs up at the Cocos Lagoon and in the MTM swamp. Just these more industrial chemicals. It's tough to test for these certain things, PFAS. So what I was getting from local water labs was, you might have to ship the sample off island. The process to ship includes like a 7-day time frame that you have to get it to the lab, and it might even be more expensive to ship the sample than it would be to test it. And so just experienced a lot of hurdles around that. And so just to have an elder come through and just divinely, meet Sina May that year, I was like, wow, we got to do something with this. And then of course time passed. And I think Sina May gave me her number. I lost her number. And then she happened to come to Tanai Anamu art exhibit the opening day. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sina May. She's like one of my friend's aunties. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make sure I get your number again. So we reconnected, and she just so happened to be on island around the time that we wanted to start the program. So yeah, we wanted to include a number of components in the program. Youth empowerment was really important for us. We wanted to let the youth know, like, yeah, we have these threats to our water from the firing range complex that's being built up in northern Guåhan, historical contamination that we face. Even the local government, with the passage of legislation to up the number of septic tanks per lot, that's going to impact our aquifer. And we didn't want to just leave them with this information that was going to make them feel overwhelmed. We're thinking about, what could we teach them so they can know that there is something that we can do. And so I've been following the work that's happening out in Hawaii around the Alawai Canal. There are groups there that are restoring the water in the canal using this bioremediation strategy. It's also called bokashi balls, but we localized it here. We were throughout the program calling it bolin fatsi. We were calling it metgoat mud balls. And some of the sinas have, they want to think of something like even cooler. So that's just kind of like the name in draft form. But yeah, it was kind of like that there was this question of how can we explain to the students that, you know, there are threats to our water, and let them know that there, you know, there are things that they can do just with their families. And with the help of May, we're able to purchase test kits, and maybe Sina, you can talk a little bit about the test kits and where we collected we collected water from different parts of the island, from the north, central, and southern parts of the island, and Sina was so generous in lending her knowledge and guiding us through the process.
Yep. So I stood with Maria and the kids, and we had these test strips. The test strips, we would dip them into all the 3 different collections that we had, and I would have the kids like say, with you want to find out lead, we have to wait like either 30 seconds or a minute. So that's the part where they were counting in CHamoru. And then we were able to compare the test strips with a color chart and indicate if the water had lead in it, if it was, if what pH it had, what else? Chlorine, I think, was one of the things we tested. I'm trying to remember in the test strip, because test strips all have different variety. And the kids were very amazed to see the color change in the test strip and find out. In fact, they all had their own group. They all did their individual testing with all the waters, and they then recorded their findings and the results of these water. And then we kind of put it all together, and it did show some indications of either bacteria. We had a color form with the bacteria. We had to save that. I think it was 48 hours, if I'm not mistaken. And if the color changed, then it proved that there was bacteria. So I think we did that test down in the Mungmung Totu Mighty area swamp, and that was amazing. The ladies that farm there, you know, never knew this was, I guess they had been planting. I think I had spoken to the ladies who were there, and I guess they were from the Palau Society. They had, I think, originally 10 of them, but they've lost several of their members, and I forget if there's 4 more left, I guess. But it was just, they would say how they had planted in a big area in that swamp area, and later it just dwindled down to a smaller area. I'm not sure if it's because it was just loaded with water that they really couldn't plant anymore, but that was one of the things they said. I think they did a little interview with those women too. So they did they did speak out and say what, you know what I mean, how things went about. But yes.
Yeah, the great thing about these tests is that they were very visual. You know, we were like, what kind of test could we show the kids that would get them excited about what they're seeing? So you could get these at Home Depot. They're shoot, I think they're called OK Plus, H2O OK Plus. So this tests for 12 different harmful chemicals, and there is one from the same brand that also tests for pesticides. And so we, on the field trip day, in the video you saw that the field trip, we went to Malesu Pier. We tested the water there. We also tested water from the Masu Reservoir. In that video, we tested water from the MTM taro fields that Sina May was mentioning. And then we also collected water from Hurao, from Paseo. And yeah, so Hurao, Paseo, and then Chrissy went and collected from Malesu. So that was like 5 water bodies total. And can you guess which one was the cleanest? Magat, we're gonna
Oh
do a
man.
little quiz here.
Oh man. Okay, this is tough. This is tough. Atas ko te kupar STMBT. Hasanay naman gana I don't win when I gamble. Let's see here. Okay. So let's see here. You said maybe I would guess Malesu. Malesu.
I'm sorry, I want to build the anticipation, so I'm not answering right away. But no, believe it or not, all 4 samples tested positive for coliform bacteria. The one sample that was the cleanest was the sample up at Hurao. And so, yeah, F grade. No, I'm just joking. But okay, so bummer. I'm sad you didn't answer the question correctly, but it's a positive that we found one area around the island that was the cleanest, Hurao, and more reason to protect the water up in northern Guåhan. Right now, there is a firing range complex, a 700-acre firing range complex that's being built above our main water aquifer. It's being built on the cliff side. There up in the north at Tailalu over my family's ancestral land, the Texan. And so, there's a lot of concern around the impacts to the water in the area. And I think having being able to do data collection in the area is extremely important as they continue to move forward with their project against community opposition, just so that we have that baseline data that says this water actually tested the cleanest of all of the water and waters around the island. And every year go back and test and see how the range impacts the environment. So
Man,
yeah.
that is such a strong point that you're making there. That's a strong point. And I do want to put it out there are a bunch of you that are watching, and be sure to if you have any questions, or comments, put them in the chat, because I see a bunch of you watching. Your names show up. My goodness, your names show up. So I'm going to call you out, a few of you, if you don't put a comment or a question in soon. And so, but because one thing that I really want to highlight, when you were mentioning about the test can be fun for the kids, some of these, you can get at Home Depot, this is so important when we talk about, we've known about sort of some of the gaps in our educational experience here in Guam for generations now. I mean, my grandfather, who went to school in the 1920s here on Guam, he told me that he read books about squirrels when he had no idea what a squirrel was. He couldn't even pronounce the word squirrel at that time. It was a strange and peculiar word that they learned about at the Bradley School in Anigua. And so today, though, I remain frustrated that kids still learn first about winter, spring, summer, and fall, and that later on in life they learn about what the rainy season and the dry season mean. And I still remain frustrated at that like, as a parent, I have to tell and explain my children about rainy season and dry season. And when they go to school, they are told that, oh, spring is starting soon. And that's not relevant. Summer starting, fall is starting soon, and that has no relevance to our lives here in Guam. And so when you are talking, though, about how these are things in which you can bring scientific inquiry, scientific investigation, because that's what science is, right? Science is not, it's not that science can only be done in this lab. It can only be done with this type of geography. It can only be done with these type of fancy white coats, right? It can only be done in these ways. It's about inquiry and investigation and encouraging the critical thinking, the search for answers and stuff like that. And so, that's what I really liked about this, is getting kids just to be curious and to think, to kind of not just look at the world around them, but then to ask questions and to give them some tools to think about that. And so what was it? So I wanted to ask you this, though. What was some of the feedback that you got from some of the kids or from some of the parents about sort of this experience? Because you know, especially taking them into these places, learning in these ways. Did some of the kids express like having fun? Were they very interested in it? You know, what was some of the feedback that you got?
Well, for me, the feedback I got from the kids was this was something all new to them. They never knew that they could test these waters. They've never seen a test strip before that can indicate that there's a color chart. You can compare it and know the results right instantly. You didn't have to wait to send it off to a lab. That brought them more knowledge, I think, more aware of their water. One of the things when Maria asked me to join, I kind of did a little research on some of the bases, and I noticed that Camp Pendleton out in California, they've already closed down certain wells. They've already closed out certain areas. I mean, people can go ahead and read up on it, and they'll find out that if, like Maria said, that if we've already tested the Latigan waters and it's great and clean, and they're going to build this firing range, I think that they should continue to test. And there's got to be a stop if our water, our aquifers are going to be contaminated with lead. And you know what I mean? It's just not good for our drinking water system. Yeah. The kids found it fun too. And I think more, I think it opened their minds even more to what's out there in the water other than just going to the beach, and you know what I mean? So knowledge was also obtained from a lot of this with the kids. Yep. That's what I got out. And Maria might have more from her experience with the kids.
Yeah, you said that really well, Sinami. The kids were really excited. A lot of them didn't even know that we had an aquifer that stored 85% of our drinking water. A lot of them, like Sina May said, had never seen a test strip. So I think demystifying what water testing is, it can seem scary not only to students and to nannies, but to us as adults even. We're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot that goes into testing water. So giving them the opportunity to have a kit, and one that is very user friendly was important. We also had parents tell us that their kids for like the next 2 weeks after the program ended kept asking to go to Home Depot. We're like, we want to get some test kits, Nana. Like, let's go to Home Depot. So they were still so excited. We gave them these vial necklaces, just these water protector vial necklaces, and a test strip to go for them to go around and continue to test water bodies. But yeah, we even heard from Sina Gwinifi and Maria Arceo. Shout out to all of them and Pepexai at Hurao who sent Agradesi Hamzu. So grateful for just the confidence that Hurao had in us to put forth this program. They were sharing that there were a lot of people in the community that were reaching out to Hurao that wanted to be part of the community after seeing the coverage for the program, because it was just such a cool science program. We had the Guam Girl Scouts reach out to us after the Guam PDN article came out. So we did a Bowl and Fatsi workshop with the Guam Girl Scouts. So yeah, there's been a lot of great feedback from the community, and I think that this shows that there's a need and that there's an interest in this kind of work and a passion from our community to have a tool and have some, just to learn some something like mud balls, like bokashi balls, learn about how to make them and how to protect our water. So we're gonna Hurao has expressed that they would like us to make this an annual program. And so we're continuing to work on getting funding. If anyone watching loves this work, feel free to reach out. We would love to make this sustainable and continue on with this program for years to come and continue with that generational impact.
Oh, Biba. No, bonito now. I think
Yeah.
we have a few questions related to the Bolan Fatsi that have come in. And so I think people are a little bit confused because somebody has asked a question because I think they're thinking about the seed balls that they were throwing down south. And then so one person has asked, are these similar to the seed balls? And then another person has asked, when will we know the Bolan Fatsi, like how long would it take for them to be effective in terms of cleaning or helping clean the environment? And so I guess can you break down the Bolan Fatsi? Tell us a little bit more directly sort of about how they help, how they help the environment, and then how long does it take for them to sort of show results?
Yes, yeah. So these are very, very simple to make. It's really just 4 ingredients. There's Bokashi bran, which is like a compost starter. You also need EM1 solution, which is a soil enhancer. And you feed that EM1, the microorganism solution, with molasses. Just to, sugar feeds that bacteria. And then you add water. So we use local water, preferably rainwater. And you actually, I have the balls right next to me. And some of my nannies were part of this Famaga'lahen farmers program, and they just created this. This was like $5 at a farmer's market recently for their program. And it's a 6-pack of the mud balls. Oh, so you can see here, this is about after a week of fermentation, the good bacteria forms around them, and they're rock hard. So at first, of course, they're like soft mud balls. It takes about a week, it hardens, and the bacteria forms. And they're actually really, like, for example, in Poland, it was a 2-year study that was done where they found at a Turawa, I'm probably saying that wrong, reservoir study, where 46 to 58%, they found a 46 to 58% reduction in the harmful bacteria concentrations in that reservoir. And so with the Masu reservoir, we are continuing on with that project. I think with the reservoir study in Poland, they threw about 20,000 mud balls into the reservoir there. Every workshop that we have done so far, we've made about 400 to 500 mud balls. The workshop that we did with the Guam Girl Scouts, we made about 400 mud balls. So yeah, I feel like we can get there with continued community activations. In Hawaii, they do, I don't know the group leading the project out there, but they already see that there's more clarity in the water. The water is clearer, the smell is gone in areas where there were no fish, that they started to come back. So when the wildlife comes back, that's a good sign. So yeah, it's I wish that there was like something where you guys could like, well, you guys can try to make this too, or come out to the MCCA. We do community mud ball making sessions. So we did one at the SKC Unity Day recently, and we'll be putting up flyers for future ones. So if this interests you, feel free to come through to those, and we're going to continue to see how we can help to clean up the Masu reservoir. We're also planning on doing a walk for water again this year, which was an amazing multi-organization collaboration last year at Latexan. So we're going to do it again this year. Now that we have the Neni water protectors feeling empowered, Sina may be coming back to the island later in the year. Hopefully all the stars align so that our nennies can be part of the march, Sina May can be at the front of the march, and we can test the waters up at Latexan during that walk. So yeah, there's a lot of potential there. And And there was a question, my son, actually, my 5-year-old was like, Mom, if you throw the mud balls in the beach, isn't it gonna get muddy? Like the beach gonna get muddy? And so I have read that you can use Wakashi balls on the beach side. I was curious about if we could substitute the mud for sand. So yeah, that's something that we can definitely look into. But for now, we're gonna stick with ponds, rivers, and reservoirs. Hopefully that answered some of the question.
Oh, Sidus Masi.
Yes.
Sidus Masi. Senora, did you have something that you want to add into about that, or?
I was just gonna say, so Maria had introduced me to the mud bowls, which I was never heard of before, but I did do some readings, and I think somewhere in Asia, they're throwing in these mud bowls also. And I think the way the article I read, it wasn't like a few hundred, it was like the whole the community threw these mud bowls in to help clean out their water system so they can use it. It clears the sludge and stuff, and it helps so that they can fish and they can farm for fish and shrimp in these waters. But it was a community effort that got to help clean out the water so these fish and shrimp could be caught and be raised again so the community can pick up some, go fishing again. Yeah. And I think if people are interested, they can read more into it. And it's out there, which, like I said, I've never heard of it until Maria mentioned it to me. So I had to do a little research myself to read about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the best way to explain it to folks who this is very new to is kind of comparing it to what like a probiotic or what yogurt does and how that helps your stomach. It's kind of like giving the water a probiotic treatment. So you're adding that good bacteria into the water instead of using harsh chemicals to clean the water, you're using fermented mud balls with all of this good bacteria. It can also be used as a soil enhancer. So it adds these plant-friendly microbes into the soil and reduces plant diseases. So those who came to the farmers market and got one of these 6 packs of mud balls, we were suggesting, because they are rock hard, smashing them with a hammer, sprinkling them around your raised bed garden and your plants. So yeah, this good bacteria helps to suppress the bad bacteria that could cause plant diseases. And yeah, it's just really safe for the environment, safe for aquatic life. I always like to turn to more natural methods first before moving forward with chemical sort of remediation. So yeah, just kind of helping the water to restore its health naturally.
Oh, no, wonderful.
Yeah.
I wanted to, because I know there's some wonderful videos from multiple days of the program. And so I wanted to share some real fast, because I know here, this is a video where you're making the mud. Ooh, to the sounds of Joe Garrido again. And so it's wonderful. It is Govzahu estinai famagun, man mamatitinas, bolan fat seeds, and it's just amazing because when you think about when we think about science and how it's taught to most kids, it's very stale, it's sterile, it's very abstract, it's disconnected. But if you kind of think of it this way instead, it's hands-on, it's community focused, it's grounded, it's everything that we all say that we want in education. And so that's why, oh man, go for Zappo. And then but each day, so you can go to Instagram, and there's a wonderful video sort of on different days of the program. This was the day in which you were talking about the water, the lens aquifer, and sort of how important water is, right? And I believe there's your prima, right?
Yeah,
Right, there's your
Chrissy.
Hanoi Primamo.
Hungan, that's my right hand, my partner in crime, my prima Chrissy, who has been a teacher for like 12 years. So
Yeah.
she just naturally works so well with the kids, and we're so blessed and grateful that she was able to be part of this program as well. Yeah, it was a 3-week program, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we talked a little bit about just the aquifer, explain the parts of the aquifer. You can see in this video, we did a little water filtration demonstration where we had 2-liter bottles. We filled them, one with a plant with roots in the soil, one with just mulch on top of soil, and one with just soil. Had the nannies pour water in and see which one filtered water the best. And so they were able to see the plant with the roots in the soil had this it had the best filtration. And so we were teaching them about the importance of native forest above our aquifer and filtering the water down. We also taught them about, so it was a 3-part sort of program where we taught them about water filtration. We taught them about how to make the mud balls for bioremediation as a bioremediation strategy. And then we taught them how to actually test the water and go on a field trip to the Masu Reservoir and to Malesu Pier to test the water there. And it was just so fun. Oh my gosh, this is just the kids just have this they just get you excited about doing this work, just this glimmer in their eye. They're just so happy to put their vial in the water, grab their sample, and they were so eager to test it. And the final week we came together and we created a story. So it was it's going to be about like a 15 to 16 page storybook, children's book on water protection that we were able to have narrative sessions with them. We talked about the different parts of the story and created it together. And then we had a day where we illustrated the book. So we're working with we're working on having one of the students illustrate it. And Veroni Sablan is also one of the Pipexi there at Hurao, who is going to help us digitize the images. And we're going into the school next week to make to finish it up. And we're so excited to get this storybook out into the community because we were reading, part of the program included, like at the beginning of some of the sessions, we read children's books about water protection. And they were all from like Native communities out in the States. Like there was one called We Are Water Protectors, which was about the Dakota Access Pipeline. But we didn't have one yet in Guåhan about a project that's impacting our aquifer. So we're really excited. The children's book is going to be about the firing range complex. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but yeah, there is a giant gamsun that is still in. And so we're really, really excited to see that slowly come to life.
Oh, Biba. Oh, it is all, it's all amazing. It's all amazing to see all this going on, and especially the idea that it might become a regular sort of, it might become a regular, an annual sort of thing. And so I do want to ask, because as I was mentioning earlier, education on Guam is, usually doesn't take into account these types of lessons, these types of activities. And I don't, is there anything that you can suggest in terms of, educators or schools or parents, thinking about how they can indigenize their own classrooms or decolonize, whatever their preferred word is or way of thinking about it. But really, it's just connecting our resources to our community, connecting our critical thinking to the world around us, right? There's so many ways to imagine it, but I think, at least from my own personal perspective, it's, I grew up on Guam in the 1980s and 90s, but it was, you could go through how many years of education and learn almost nothing about Guam. And I think many kids today still can have that experience. And so do you have any, after going through this, very successful program, do you have any kind of suggestions, any ideas for teachers, for parents about how they can ground their own pedagogy, ground their own assignments, their own activities in their own classrooms? Maria, Senora?
Yeah. I guess Maria is in charge of this program. So I think, Maria, weren't you suggesting to go maybe starting it with the other schools? I thought that's what the plan was.
There are so many possibilities, I think,
Yeah.
for a program like this. I think with just the creation of a storybook on water protection, is something that can be distributed in the classroom. I know, just also being raised here in Guåhan, that there weren't a lot of resources. There weren't a lot of books about our island. We were taking SATs with these, like Miguel was saying, these animals that we didn't know what they even were,
Yeah.
how they looked. And so I also want to plug the Guam Bus. The Guam Bus has been doing amazing work over the years, just getting those children's books made. We have all the books, we have all the cards, the bingo sets. Like, this is so important. And my kids now go to Hurao. They started last year. So it's been amazing to see the growth in their language skills since last year. And I thought that it was just going to be them sort of learning more, but it's really been a journey for myself too. And I can say that I at least understand like 50% more than I did previously. So I don't know what the best method would be. I just think that there are so many movers and shakers in the community, like, the immersion programs that exist on island. I think the schools, Hurao had some schools visit and do an exchange program. And I'm sure that the other school at PC Lujan also, does an exchange program, or, that I think that exchange of knowledge is really important. I think getting CHamoru resources in the classrooms is so important. And we're always, like, with the Girl Scouts, reaching out, asking if we can do a mud ball workshop. We would love to continue to do this. It's just, for us little nonprofits, small but mighty nonprofits, a lot of that sort of relies on the grant funding. So I've applied to like 4 or 5 more grants to try to continue to keep to continue this program on. And yeah, we're hoping that when let's manifest when the grant funding comes in, that we can do maybe a teacher training, like, let's invite like teachers from all over the island. I think there are some orgs that are already doing that. I don't know if it was Guam COD, but I have been seeing a lot of like teacher seminars where teachers are invited to a space to learn about an issue and then bring that back to their classroom. So that might be the most efficient way to do it. So there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope for sure in indigenizing and decolonizing the classroom.
Oh no, there definitely is. I mean, I think I hope that more teachers get inspired by examples like this. Just the fact that and especially when we looked at with all sorts of cuts that are on the horizon from the federal government, it means that there may need to be restructuring of education, and that is going to be difficult in some ways, but in other ways we may need to say, well, why don't we rethink some of these things then? So instead of fixating on a lot of these federal standards, then why don't we think then about, well, what would prepare our kids sort of to what would compare our kids to not just pass the SATs then, or like what would prepare our kids not just to do really well on that standardized test, which is in many ways what American education has focused on for a really long time, but prepare them to be strong, confident, capable islanders. You know, islanders who can go global, but they start off sort of coming from an island that has an aquifer that needs to be cared for, because even if they go off somewhere else in the world, they've got a bunch of family here that needs that aquifer. And so they need to protect the island back home, even if their education and their plans take them elsewhere. And so, but so I'm, you know, programs like this give me a lot of hope though, just because, because you don't need, sometimes we always think that we need the fanciest and the biggest and the newest thing. Like we need the biggest and the smartest and the best AI. Oh, maybe, sure, that might help. People say, for example, Maria, you mentioned, you're esta mas maula kau gifinot tomorrow. Un teteg zu gifinot tomorrow lokwe. You're texting way more in tomorrow. Who comprendi lokwe, who agrededesya now. And it's like people used to always say we need Rosetta Stone to save the language. Rosetta Stone sure could help, but you know what's cheaper is you could also just spend time with your Chamorro speaking relatives. You could study more. If we've got the resources, we can always get the fanciest thing and the most expensive thing. But there's other community-based ways that we can approach it too. And so I think this program has shown us that, if we've got the resources, we can get other things, but we can also teach our kids, science. We can prepare them to be vigilant, and we can prepare them to be smart, and we can prepare them to be grounded in just very simple ways too. And I love this. And so I want to give a final chance to the two of you just to share any thoughts, any closing thoughts that you have, because we're just about out of time.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate Maria doing this on the island. And like I said to Maria, even though I live far away, I do read the papers all the time. I do read the Guam. I try to get into the Guam bus, but your hours are kind of my late hours at night. So it's kind of difficult, but and I used to work at 6 a.m, so it was very hard on a Sunday night. But everything that both you and Maria are doing, and I try to follow, and like Maria's got me to, when we went to Hurao school, I started writing in Chamorro and using my dictionary to find the words and stuff. So it's educational for all of us all together, and including myself, like I said, to read on the mud balls, and for other folks who are listening in to read about Camp Pendleton and do a little research to help maybe protect our island and its water resources before they become contaminated, that it's going to be beyond control. And like Camp Pendleton, they've closed down a few of the wells. They've closed down a few land areas where people can't go to. So if we protect our island and keep up with it, I think it would be the best for the people of Guam.
Sidus
Maga'lahen,
Masi,
always
Senora,
so
Sidus
fun.
Masi. And Maria,
Yes.
Hago Palco.
Again, oh, Sina May, just so grateful to have met Sina May. She's been an amazing mentor during this time, just always leading with gratitude, really, and so humbled to be able to continue to do this work. Another huge shout out to Hurao Charter
Yes.
School. Yeah, just you get these like dreamers in your office, like, let's do mud balls. It's not every school that would be like mud balls, like, let's do it. And so just the enthusiasm around that. So grateful to all the signers who were just fully on board. And yeah, everybody over there, all of anybody perpetuating our language in Guåhan really is a hero of mine. And if folks want to follow the journey more and see a little bit more in depth into what went into the program, we did film it and are continuing to film these water protection efforts with Mighty Island. We are planning to release the film in January of next year. It's called Follow the Water. And so we started filming around the time of the last Walk for Water. And so we're gonna continue on over the next few months. And yeah, just keep an eye out for the details about that release. We're really, really excited for it. And thank you so much, Maga'lahen, for this opportunity. So grateful for you, CHamoru, for continuing to uplift this work for the protection of our waters.
Oh no. Hogomas, Maria. Hamzumas, Hamzumas. Konsigi mo na hamzu na giesti kinalam tetta hunggan. Sidus masi no hamzu na dos puri bidan mimidzo. And sidus masi no hamzu todos puri ne egads and in ekung okestin episode Fanachu estigi I finakpo estin episode.